Hello! In this video, we're going to show you how you can export tracks out of Band-in-a-Box and into digital audio workstations such as GarageBand, Logic, and Pro Tools. First of all, I've got a song loaded in Band-in-a-Box, a country waltz with the Brent Mason soloist on the soloist track. Now I'll first show you the very basic task of dragging an audio track into the Finder. I'm first going to put Band-in-a-Box into the Digital Audio Workstation, or DAW, plugin mode. This just instantly shrinks Band-in-a-Box to a smaller size so you can see the folders or DAWs beneath it, making the dragging and dropping easier. Now this is the drop station, and any instrument that you want to drag somewhere else can first be dragged here to prepare the file. So I'd like to prepare the soloist track. So I'll click and hold on soloist and drag and drop it on the drop station. Then when the color changes from blue to green, it's ready to use. I've got a Finder window open beneath Band-in-a-Box, so now I can just click on the drop station and drag that to the Finder. And I want to copy rather than move the file there, so I'll hold the Option key, which means that I'll still be able to do more dragging with this file. If I didn't do that, the drop station would go back to blue, indicating that you need to start again. And we now have our file here. I'll do the same thing again with the same file, but instead I'll drag it to iTunes so I can play it there. Now in both of these cases, it's created an AIFF file, which is uncompressed lossless audio. If, however, you want a smaller file, you can choose to have Band-in-a-Box instead make M4A files in the DAW plugin settings. And next, I'm going to drag some tracks into GarageBand. You can drag files directly from Band-in-a-Box into GarageBand, and I'll first do so with that same soloist file. And now I'll try it with the bass track. I'll drag the bass track onto the drop station, and then drag directly into GarageBand. Let's have a listen to those two tracks together in GarageBand. So there we have two real tracks, audio tracks, which we brought into GarageBand. The other thing you can do, of course, is to bring in MIDI, and there are two options for this. You may want the actual MIDI itself, or you may want it converted from MIDI to an audio track before bringing it in. Both options are available. Now our piano track, you can see, is not green like the others, and this indicates that it's not real tracks, but is rather MIDI. I'll first try just dragging it to the drop station without changing any settings, just using the default. And I'll drag that into GarageBand. And you can see this is not a waveform, but is rather a piano roll, indicating that this is actually a MIDI track we have here. Let's give that a listen. Now, if we wanted it to be an audio track, we can either change the settings, so MIDI tracks are dragged as audio, or we can follow this tip and hold the Control key during drag to force audio. Let's see what happens when we try again following that tip by holding the Control key. And then dragging into GarageBand. And it's the same track, but we can see it's now audio instead of MIDI. I now have a new song loaded and playing in Band-in-a-Box, and I'm going to show you dragging and dropping into Logic Express, which you'll see when I go back into DAW mode is open behind it. Instead of an individual track, I'm instead going to show you how to drag the entire mix. Instead of dragging one of these instruments, I'm going to drag the combo into the drop station. And when it's ready, I'll drag that into Logic Express. And if I play a bit, you can hear that it's the whole mix. There's another option as well with the combo button. If I go into the DAW options, I can choose to drag combo as separate audio tracks. Now if I do that same thing and drag into Logic Express, it gives me a choice of what to do with the tracks. I'll select Create New Tracks. And we now have all of the tracks from Band in a Box with only one drop. I'll now show you dragging and dropping into Pro Tools. In this example, instead of a situation where we've made a song first in Band in a Box, I'll instead show you an example where we already had a song in Pro Tools and we're just adding a track to it. I've got the song Frontier loaded in Pro Tools. It was originally recorded to a click at 120 beats per minute, which makes this process a little bit easier, but this could still be done even if it wasn't. In Band in a Box then, I've used the Audio Chord Wizard to determine the chords and tempo to Frontier. We explain how to use the Audio Chord Wizard in more detail in a different video. I've then used the chords to generate a pedal steel part. And now I'll drag that part into Pro Tools. And we can see that we've added a brand new instrument to our existing song. Now the last thing I'm going to show you is some under the hood stuff. If I go back into the DAW options, we can see that this button opens the drag drop folder. Now this folder contains all of the audio and MIDI files we created when we dragged into the drop station. Then when we dragged the drop station into the various DAWs, it was actually accessing these files. Now there's a button in the settings to erase all the files in this folder, which you might want to do to free up space. But you need to be aware of how your own DAW deals with imported audio before you do this. If, when you import into your DAW, it copies the audio into its own project folders, then you don't have to worry about erasing these, because they're just redundant copies. However, if your DAW doesn't copy them to their own project folders, and instead accesses the audio from this very location, then if you erase them, they will no longer work in your DAW. I'll go through the 3 DAWs that we used in this video and look at them each to see if we have to worry about this. In Pro Tools, we can have a look at the Frontier project folder. Here is the Pro Tools file, and here are the audio files it references. The left and right channels of the original Frontier song, and the BB guitar file, which is our pedal steel. So in this case, it has copied the file over, so we wouldn't have to worry about deleting the drag drop folder. However, there is a setting in Pro Tools that needs to be on for this to work. Automatically copy files on import. If this is not on, it will reference the original file, and you would have a problem if you emptied the drag drop folder. Now for Logic Express, this area shows us the various audio files that are accessed by this particular Logic Express file. And if I click on one, we can see the location of the file. And we can see that it seems to be accessing the files from Applications, Band in a Box, Drag Drop, which is the folder we were looking at. So if we deleted all the files there, that would cause a problem here. In Logic Express, however, you can select all of these files and within the program itself, move them. And I'll move the files to the Logic folder, and I'll make a Jazz Piano Solo Audio folder and place the files there. Now I can empty the drag drop folder without worrying because I've already moved my files out of there. Finally, we'll look at GarageBand. GarageBand is different from these other DAWs in that it doesn't reference external audio files at all. It simply saves all of the audio information right in the GarageBand file itself. We can see that this other empty GarageBand file, My Song, is only 640 kilobytes, which is quite small, whereas the GarageBand file I made, Country Waltz, is 74 megabytes, because all of the audio is saved right in that file. So for GarageBand, there is no fear at all of emptying the drag-drop folder. So to summarize, with Pro Tools, Logic, and other DAWs as well, you do need to make sure that you've taken those files into account before emptying that drag-drop folder. But once you've made sure that they're not being referenced, you can empty that folder. If you're unsure, you can always leave the drag-drop folder alone, or you can drag them into a different folder in the Finder before importing them into your DAW. With GarageBand, however, the audio becomes part of the file itself, so if you're a GarageBand user, you do not need to worry about it, and you can delete the folder anytime you like. We hope you've enjoyed this tutorial on dragging and dropping, and if you have further questions, please visit www.pgmusic.com.